Hi everyone. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about some themes I saw that ran through your discussion posts and maybe give you some tips on how you can study for this class. The first thing I wanted to talk about that a few of you touched on has to do with the conflict or seeming conflict between your intuitions about grammar and what you learn, what you come to find later is correct, right? And so maybe tuition and correctness don't always line up. That's absolutely right. It's true that that is often the case, and that's because human beings are not all on the standard American English page, right? There are many different kinds of English. So, there's African American vernacular comes to mind. What some people call Spanglish. I have forgotten there's a term for Korean English, but the point is that there are lots of different kinds of English because English in particular is a language that is borrowed a lot from other languages, and so it in a way lends itself easily to being made a language that is borrowed from, right? We're an immigrant nation. In many ways, the immigrants that come here come with their own languages and they adapt English to their own home language, native language. So the point I'm trying to make is we all have, things that we were brought up hearing, um, or that, the way we speak with our friends and family that are not always intuitively going to be correct. Let me word that a different way. The ways we speak and write when we're thinking and talking with our family and friends is not necessarily correct, but it has become in our minds correct so that it feels intuitive to us, right? So if you hear something enough, it sounds right. If you, and then when you hear the correct thing, it doesn't sound right to you because it's not what you're accustomed to. I have an example of this from my own life. I was born and raised in the South. My whole family is from the South, and I'm a first generation college student. So I didn't grow up listening to standard American English, not by any stretch of the imagination. So when I first got to college, I took a speech class, gave my speech. My teacher gave me some written feedback right after the speech and sent me along with a recording of my speech, which was in those days a VHS tape. And so what I learned from the comment she wrote was that I had used the word his self in my speech. I know that's not a word. When you see it written out, you know that it's not something you would write, but it might be something that some of us might say. And so but it was a speech class, right? So this was supposed to be a formal speech I was giving. So that would not have been an appropriate use of his self in that context. And so I didn't believe it. I was like, I didn't say his self. I wouldn't say something like that in a formal context. Sure enough, I go home and I pop in the VHS tape, and there I am saying the word his self. So there you go, right? That felt right to me at the time. I was speaking impromptu, and one could argue that I wasn't as prepared for my speech as I should have been, but at any rate, I did. And there are many Southernisms that I can slip into, right? So, and a lot of us, most of us probably, have dialects that we use that may not be standard American English. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with those Englishes. It's just that what we're learning now and what most of you are saying you're taking this class for is to learn standard American English. In other words, the English that we're supposed to use in our formal writing, something that we have to know for the workplace and something that we have to know for school. And it's also good to know it when as a writer, so that if creative writing in particular, because if you want to break the rules, you have to know what they are first. So this class helps you analyze those kinds of those style issues as well. The other thing I wanted to talk about is a lot of you expressed that you were having difficulty with prepositional phrases. That is completely common. It happens every semester. I've been teaching this class since 2011. I've never had a semester where people didn't have trouble with prepositional phrases. It's okay. Don't worry about it. It'll probably come over the course of the semester. Just keep in mind that prepositional phrases have to have a preposition and a noun or an object that it's attached to. More than one person said, it's difficult for me to know them because I don't know all of the prepositions. Well, probably no one knows all of the prepositions, right? I wouldn't try to memorize them so much as I would try to think about what they function as, right? So a preposition simply links that noun. And what the prepositional phrase is supposed to do is modify something, right? So it's either an adjective or an adverb. If you think of it as a structure and a unit, and instead of a preposition as a part of speech, it might be more helpful, right? So I don't know about you, but when I was in the 5th grade, I can remember learning some little mnemonic device to learn prepositions in some form that took like, a preposition was something that a squirrel could do to a tree, right? Squirrels can run up the tree, down the tree, around the tree, through the tree. So it's, prepositions and prepositional phrases have to do with orienting something in space or time or condition. So I wouldn't worry too much about trying to memorize what the prepositions are, and just think more about how they function with a noun to help another part of speech function correctly. The other thing I wanted to mention is that a few of you had never seen the word or the part had never seen a way to identify a noun before called the determiner. Determiners are going to be really important. It feels like, I'm sure that you're thinking, I know what a noun is, why do I need to know how to identify a noun? But what you'll find is that a noun can be lots of different things. Well, I should say it this way. Words that you might not expect to be nouns can be nouns. So for instance, the word most, right? It can be an adjective, the most beautiful, right? Then actually that's still a noun. So most can be a noun, it can be an adjective, and it can be an adverb, right? So how do you know what it's doing at the moment? Well, an article in front of it, the, can let you know what it's doing, right? Because an article is one type of determiner. So those will be more important later on. It can help you identify a noun even if you don't know what a noun is, or that word is being a noun. The other thing I wanted to mention is that you want to develop, if you can, a study system for this class. You'll notice that the book, and a few of you did notice that the book is sort of, the chapters are long, they're unwieldy, there's lots of verbs, lots of words, lots of everything in there. So what the supplemental material is supposed to do, the way I've thought of it when I'm constructing it, is that they are items that break down the individual chapters into more easily understood chunks. So a way that you might want to approach this is to maybe read the chapter material and then go to video, right? Go to iCollege and look at the material that is supposed to supplement that, because it might explain it to you in a way that is more useful, right? So when you're having to read everything all of the time, it can bog you down. And so maybe listening to somebody talk about it, like in a lecture, face to face, and if that's what we were doing, that's what we would be doing. But at any rate, if you look at those, they might help explain those in a different way, and I know a lot of you have already looked at them. Trying to memorize a bunch of stuff is going to be really hard. This is a super terminology heavy course though. So what I would suggest is, and a lot of you have mentioned that you have made great use of the exercises in the book. So you've got two ways of learning the material. You can memorize, and you can do hands-on practical application with the exercises in the book. You might need to do a little bit of both. So one thing I suggest a lot of the time to students is to create maybe a flashcard system so that you have, right, adjective, and then on the other side, or adjective and its definition, and then on the other side, you know, everything you know about adjectives. The questions, which one, how many, what kind, right there. And, you know, what other kinds of structures can be adjectives, prepositional phrases, just maybe, and so use those as reference sheets rather than something to memorize. That can be really helpful. So when you're doing the exercises in the book, I would strongly recommend that you don't use the book as a reference, right? The exercises in the book, but then have your study system with you so that when you need to look for something, it's there in your own, maybe in your own words or in your own way of thinking about it, so that you're not having to flip through the book all the time. You're going to find that that gets really wearisome. So just some ideas and some ways to think about studying for the course that might be helpful. Thanks a lot, you guys.